Hello to everybody who's watching, and thanks for joining us today. So today we're here to do a video interview with one of the entrepreneurs from one of our most recent innovation programs that's actually based over in the US, and that's Cherrie Legend. She's here to talk about her startup Juneteenth, and we're also here to celebrate International Women's Day together and talk about why female entrepreneurs are still missing out. So welcome, Cherrie. How are you feeling today? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm fine, Phoebe. Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. I'm really happy to be here interviewing you.
Thank you.
So I guess to start off, I just wanted to know, I guess, a bit more about your professional experience. I know you were a social media manager for a long time. How did you kind of transition across from social media management, content management into doing entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I originally, I guess if I go way, way back, I went to college at Stanford, did sociology. At the time when I graduated, the recession was full in swing. So I was like, okay, I'll get a master's. And then I had the opportunity to work at Apple. And when I originally started, the social media team didn't even exist. And to even give more context, Steve Jobs was still alive. So that's kind of like how long ago I started working there. But when I started there, I did business affairs, which was sort of like the legal arm, and then which transitioned into digital asset management, which was more like, detail oriented. And also it kind of gave me insight into like marketing it all in like the entire marketing team, because I had the opportunity to learn about marketing holistically. So then when the opportunity for social media came up, I was able to first start with the influencer program. And then after a while, there was like a lot of FCC regulations and a lot of changes. So they had to kind of reimagine the program. But at that time, I also got an opportunity to work on the YouTube channel. And, back then YouTube was still kind of like, it was there, but it was sort of like a throwaway. And so over the 3 years that I managed the YouTube channel, I was able to grow it from 1 million subscribers to 10 million subscribers. Wow. And I was also just able to learn about like the creator side of YouTube, of being like, not only coming as an advertiser, but coming as a creator, and like that intersection. And I think storytelling really underpinned like my interests in both like social media and Juneteenth. So, Juneteenth is based off of Juneteenth, the holiday, which in 1865 is when the slaves in Galveston, Texas learned that they were free. Well, not Galveston, Texas, but the slaves found out in Galveston that they were free. But this was like 2 or 3 years after the Civil War had ended and the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed by Abraham Lincoln. So because of that, for me personally, I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. And so that holiday always resonated with me and my family. Like we celebrated it every year as a child. And so I always had that memory. And that was sort of a way of like bringing that piece of me culturally into the work that I do, into the stories that need to be told. And then fortunately for me, it really took off. Like now Juneteenth is not only like a national holiday, but it's getting international recognition as this day of independence, of like, independence deferred, and how do you grow from there? So that's sort of where I started with social media. And it kind of grew out of this love of storytelling and telling stories that normally are missed or not told to their fullest potential, or stereotyped. It's like, how can we tell authentic stories? Because authentic storytelling is universal storytelling. Like you don't have to come from a certain culture to have a universal experience, because we're all human.
Yeah, and it's also something that's very difficult to really get right, and make sure that the stories are really engaging and authentic, and understandable and accessible as well. So that's really cool to learn about. And so is that mainly what your startup is focused on, like telling stories, or do you do any other? Because I know it's a consultancy, right?
Yes. So what I do is I work with brands. So established brands and like up and coming, and even some creators. I work with brands to help them one, really strategically align their stories to their business goals first and foremost, and also to the business goals of the platforms they're on, because what works today might not work tomorrow if you don't understand the roadmap of the company you're working with.
Yeah. And I mean, as a content creator myself, like I totally understand what you mean. We all love telling stories, we all love listening to stories, but trying to tie them in with objectives. And then I guess let's cut to the big question for the interview, which is why do you think that female entrepreneurs are still missing out? Because I think we've come a long way, right?
Yes.
In terms of the entrepreneurship ecosystem, a lot more female entrepreneurs now have access to the ecosystem, but I still feel like there's work we need to do, right?
Yes. I feel personally like one of the things that really got me interested in entrepreneurship to begin with was there was a course I took in college called the sociology of entrepreneurship. I feel like with sociology, what's so great is you can say the sociology of, and then insert the term, and there you go. And so part of the class requirements was that we were supposed to reach out to a local entrepreneur and or a VC firm or something. Like, we're in Silicon Valley, so yeah, here's the VC firm. So I reached out to a woman named Sharon Vosmek, and she's of Astia, and her company still exists. And she gave me really great advice, saying that when they accept people into their venture capitalists, they don't need the team to be 100% women. It's okay to be 50% women, because at this point, women are not the people who run the gears of leadership and power completely. Like, it's increasing, but it's not completely. And I think that was really profound for me, because it was sort of like, you have to learn what you don't know when it comes to entrepreneurship. And sometimes the best way to do that is with other people and building a team and building a community, and trying not to do it yourself, even though it's funny because I'm a solo entrepreneur. So it's like, I'm trying to get away from being a solo entrepreneur myself. But at the same time, I know that you really need a team that's like very diverse, both in thought, culture, all of that, in order to have these insights and discoveries. Because if you're just kind of in your own silo, or like insisting that, oh, I can only work with a certain person or a certain thing, it's like you're missing so much insight from what the world has to offer. And I think that's been, like, for me, the biggest like learning.
Yeah. And like, as you say, the world is getting so much smaller. We need to take advantage of that and like interact within more diverse groups and make the most of those insights, because as you say, everybody has them. So and then I guess the second question is, so we know that we are improving in terms of female entrepreneurs or women having access to the entrepreneurship ecosystem, but how can we start as individuals to helping increase that access even more? I know you mentioned like community building. Is there any other ideas you want to share?
Yes, I mean, I think also, like, for women, I notice, and there's research done about this. So ever so often I get to like dust off my sociology degree. It's really funny. I got a degree in sociology, and then when Steve Jobs passed away at Apple, it was literally my concentration, because I was in business organization and design, and like what happens when you change when leadership changes. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I have a front row seat to my degree. Also, I do not work in that type of department at all whatsoever. So I can just watch from afar. And so I think my litmus test of like how to get further is I kind of ask, like, whenever I'm meeting with like leadership or something, I'm like, okay, do they walk on water? No. Okay, that means they're human just like me. And also my other question to myself is like, am I doing anything bolder than like the average guy would do? Right. So my advice is that, like, no one is better than you, but also you're not better than anyone else. So knowing that, that's the ground from which you can start those conversations from, because it's authentic. It's saying like, hey, I see you, but I also expect for you to see me, and that if we're speaking to each other, it's because we both have something to offer. And so when you come from that place, I think communications flow a lot easier than when it's like this like perceived level of difference of like, oh my gosh, they're so much greater than me and I'll never live up to that. You know, we have to start like celebrating not every small win, but just like really like, no, you bring something to the table and that's not minor. That's a big deal.
Yeah. And supporting that in women, right? And recognizing that, and just making space for that as well.
Absolutely.
So, okay, in the spirit of International Women's Day, I have one final question.
Yes.
And that is, if you could interview one female entrepreneur in the ecosystem right now, who would you interview and why?
I would interview Issa Rae. What I really appreciate what she's done, it's sort of like she built an empire around her business. So it's not necessarily just entertainment. It's the radio, it's the like podcasts, like it's hair care. I think she also has a coffee shop she's invested in. So it's like just diversifying your portfolio. I think that's just a really great business plan and business model. And it kind of shows like entrepreneurship of like that endures. So it's not so much, okay, I was known for this one thing. I got pigeonholed in this one thing, and that's the only thing that I'm known for and that I do. It's sort of like, no, I have a wide variety of talents. This also gives access to a wide variety of people and creatives like at all levels, because it's like who runs like all of the details and the marketing and the behind the scenes of all of that. Like, so you unlock opportunities for a diverse group of people across a diverse set of disciplines.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying there. So that's it. That's the end of the interview. I know it's been short but sweet, but I definitely feel like we've really connected, and it's been an absolute pleasure to get to know more about you, more about Juneteenth. For everybody that's watching, you can click the link below that I'm going to include below to Juneteenth's new website.
Yes.
And any other relevant links. And I'll also include information on Bridge. Again, Cherrie, it's been a pleasure. And for everybody that's watching, have a great day. And I hope to see you back watching some of our content soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Phoebe.